44 billion to 149 billion. The street estimate is above that range at 150.21. You said, it might be because of the online business. What's the question you want to be hearing or that analysts are asking specifically on that call?
I think the first question is, how much did an earlier Easter help them in the spring sale? How much did that contribute to that 7% increase that they saw in online sales first party? Because if that was a few percentage points, then that kind of answers the question going into the second quarter. And then the other question I'd ask on the retail side is, how are they doing in terms of just gaining share online against these rising threats from Temu and Shein? I don't know if they'll ever answer that, but clearly those businesses are growing very rapidly. And is there something else that they're doing to offset those competitive threats?
Anurag, I'm just taking some time to look through the cloud results here. And one thing that was notable going into this report is that there was some discussion about sales growth at AWS slowing to a record low last year, businesses cutting back on tech spending. They wanted to bring those computing bills that ballooned during the pandemic under control. Now you have Jassy out in a statement saying essentially that the combination of companies renewing their infrastructure modernization efforts and the appeal of AWS's AI capabilities is re-accelerating AWS's growth rate. Is that him saying companies are done cutting back on their cloud spend? Is that him saying the worst is behind us when it comes to companies tightening their belt?
Yeah, and frankly speaking, he had to say that because both Microsoft and Google came up with very good numbers. Now, when you look at AWS commitments, they gave out a figure called cloud commitments, which is people signing long-term contracts. Even in the last, I would say 1.5%, very strong, 25%, 30%, even higher, which means people are making those commitments. They're not just using them. They're not using those cloud credits. They're just pacing themselves into a variable cost model, and then when economic conditions improve for their clients, they will, get the consumption up, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Anurag, what's your number one question for the call?
The number one question is, can you break out your AI workloads versus the non-AI workloads on AWS? Because Microsoft's already saying, so if Microsoft sales growth is, let's say, 30%, 7 percentage points of that is because of AI. I want to know that exact number for AWS. I don't think they're going to give it this time, but that's my number one question.
Hey, forgive us, but we got earnings crossing again right now. Shares of AMD down about 4.2% in the after hours. Second quarter revenue coming in at $5.4 to $6 billion. Estimates were for the midpoint there, 5.7. First quarter adjusted EPS did beat estimates. Should note also operating margin coming in above estimates at 21% versus estimates of 20.8%. First quarter CapEx, though, coming in way above estimates. $142 million, Carol. Estimates were for $118.4 million.
AMD now down more than 5% in the aftermarket. Amazon, we continue to talk about it. Their cloud unit posting the strongest sales growth in a year. Some of the retailers' most profitable unit is recovering from a slump as businesses resume spending on technology projects, and we've seen the shares certainly rally here in the aftermarket. We were talking to Poonam Goyal and Anurag Rana of our Bloomberg Intelligence team. Poonam, is there anything in here, too, that you get an idea of kind of how consumers are doing? Certainly Amazon is such a great key metric when it comes to this. What are you seeing in that front?
I think Amazon continues to take share. So when you look at the consumer dynamics today in retail, Amazon has been taking share. Most of the consumer is still cautious. They're still trading down to value. They are spending where they want to spend, and they're spending more on staples than they are on discretionary. So I think the numbers that they've posted today show that they continue to take share.
And I just want to point out, Amazon shares now are only up about 1% here, so they've definitely pared back some of their earlier moves.
On a report like this, I see the way that Amazon is dominating when it comes to cloud, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to online retail. They're in healthcare now. They're getting everywhere. And I guess my question for you is about regulatory risk here. FTC has a suit filed against the company. And I'm wondering how investors should think about regulatory risk here. I mean, this is a close to $2 trillion company.
Well, we have analysts that cover it on the regulatory side. And I think so far the BI opinion is that we don't see a big risk to the Amazon business as it stands today. So we also don't see a breakup happening. We put very low probability on that. And when you think about the different businesses that Amazon competes in, it is a dominant share in many of them, but it's also a very small share in many of them, like the few that you mentioned, healthcare. Amazon's still a very small player in the healthcare business. In the grocery business, where they're trying to make inroads, they're very small there. They are a large retailer, but most of their retail business is third-party operated, more than 60%. So there's arguments to be made on both sides, but our opinion at BI is that it's not going to be easy for the FTC to force a breakup here.
I see Anurag just nodding his head from Chicago right now. I'm wondering your thoughts on this, Anurag, and if you have anything to add when it comes to AWS, because certainly they're the dominant player. I mean, they invented the category, no question.
Yeah, but they invented the category, and Microsoft's been closing that share like for a while now.
Yeah.
And in AI, Microsoft doing far better. Google's growing much faster. Microsoft growing even faster. So nobody can say that they dominate the cloud space right now. They have to watch their heels at any given time. You see the number of product releases from AWS and the amount of marketing they're putting behind it just to say that they're not behind Microsoft. So I would not say that they are a monopoly when it comes to cloud. I mean, there's so many players at this point.
Well, it's so funny you said that. I'm reading through the press release right now, and there's like a ton of stuff on AI, but it's just a lot of stuff. And I guess,
Exactly.
What are you looking for, Anurag, as you read through like what they're doing here and Amazon Q and what they're doing with Salesforce? Like what is it that you're looking for as you parse through what's a lot of words?
Yeah, so the way you want to think about it, Microsoft disclosed some numbers. When we back into that, it shows us that Microsoft, just on their cloud business, is generating $1 billion a quarter at this point, which is a quarterly revenue of $4 billion. Amazon's not going to give any close to number like that. They are nowhere close to that. So I think that's basically shows that the competition is really tough right now. And they have to launch all these products in order for enterprises or companies to embrace it so that they can down the road give that number out. So if they give a number out, I think it'll be a very, very different ballgame tomorrow, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Hey, Poonam, in our conversations last week about Meta Platforms, we spoke to your colleague Mandeep Singh a lot about how advertising how AI at Meta Platforms was being used to really help with advertising. And I kind of want to frame the same question to you. It's about e-commerce and how what Amazon is doing when it comes to AI. We talk a lot about that in the context of AWS, but how does it help the core business, getting people to buy more stuff and get more stuff delivered at Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, AI, generative AI especially, is crucial for retail. In fact, we think it's one of the biggest drivers to the surge or the next leg of growth that you're going to see online. When you think about generative AI and you think about search, right, we go shop online, we put something in the search bar, and we get 1 million responses. Half of them, more than half of them, are not relevant. So as you increase the relevancy of the search, you're going to also increase conversion because you're giving customers what they want. So huge ROI in getting the search right. And then outside of that, there are a lot of tools, whether it's using Gen AI to create your marketing, to create product. There are so many things that you could do with Gen AI on the e-commerce product side that are really beneficial to the customer experience. And in fact, outfitting yourself, for example, using AI tools, using visual tools to be able to create these scenarios. It's all about increasing conversion when it comes to using AI for e-commerce.
All right, guys. Still watching shares of Amazon up about 2.6%. This as we mentioned earlier, reporting a strong cloud unit sales, rising AI demand. But again, that second quarter net sales forecast is a little bit light than what the street is forecasting. What could they say, Anurag, on the call that would make you a little bit more nervous? Because right now, investors seem to be pretty pleased with this report.
Yeah, I mean, on the cloud side, if they go out and say that the growth for next quarter is going to be much lower than what it is, then it's a cause for concern because their competitors have not said that. So one would imagine that if the current quarter growth rate was around 17%, they should grow in that same range, 16, 17% in the next quarter also. If they go out and said it's only going to be 10, 12, 11, then I think that's a problem.
Same question to you, Poonam. What could they say on the call that might make you be a little bit more hesitant on this company?
If they say retail growth or the e-commerce business has slowed to low single digits,
Okay.
I would be a little concerned or even turn negative.
All right, listen, we so appreciate both of you weighing in on a company that's not a little complicated. I don't know that I want to say complicated, but yeah, a lot of moving pieces.
And so you need whiteboard, right?
We do, yeah. And so great to get both of their perspectives. Poonam Goyal, she's senior analyst for e-commerce, athleisure, off-price retail on Zoom from India.
Where it's 2 a.m. So thank you.
Poonam, oh my God, we owe you, we owe you. And Anurag Rana, always so helpful when we have to go through these reports. Senior technology analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us from our Chicago bureau. Really, both of them. We so appreciate the insight. We're continuing watching Amazon, which had kind of run out a little bit of steam, back up about 3% here, rallying in the aftermarket.
It's only about 3:24 in Chicago p.m.
I know.
Okay.
Really early.
It's really early in
Oh my
India.
God.
Hey, let's get on over to Charlie Pellet, because there's more happening in the after hours than just Amazon. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there. Indeed, let us recap and reset, Tim, because we got Amazon was the big story, but yes, we also heard from Starbucks and AMD. Amazon's cloud unit posted the strongest sales growth in a year, a sign that the retailer's most profitable unit is recovering from a slump as businesses resume spending on technology projects. Poonam Goyal is a senior retail analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence.
I think the story really is on AWS. That's where the beat came from. But I would say, the guidance is light of expectations. And that may have something to do with online. Because if you recall, the first quarter, it did have an earlier Easter. So some of the numbers that you see on the online side being strong and in line is thanks to that earlier Easter and the spring sale that they had, which wasn't there last year.
Bloomberg's Poonam Goyal. Starbucks posted its first sales decline in more than 3 years as customers cut their spending despite half-off deals and new drinks added to the coffee chain's menu. S&P lower today by 80. Dow was down 520 points, a decline of 1.5%. S&P down 1.6%. Nasdaq lower today by 2%. 10-year 4.67%, with a 2-year 5.03%. Spot gold today declined by $44 the ounce. Right now, gold $22.91. West Texas Intermediate crude also lower today. We had WTI declining as well. West Texas Intermediate crude down by 1.3%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thanks so much for that update, Charlie Pellet. Appreciate it. Hey, Carol, do you remember during the pandemic how much we cooked and baked? We were all stuck at home.
Drink wine.
Yeah, that's true. That's not in my what I wrote.
That's not you.
That's true.
Here.
The grocery store shelves were bare. Yeast was pretty much impossible to come by.
Yeah.
Everyone was cooking at home.
People were selling flour in bags. Remember that? I did that.
Yeah.
Bought that.
Were you selling it or buying it?
I was buying it.
All right. Well, it turns out that we pretty quickly went back to our old ways, cooking at home at the same levels as we were pre-pandemic. About 6.1 meals per week in 2022. 6.3 per week in North America. That's according to the most recent Gallup CookPad Global Survey, which was published last fall. It's not a lot of home-cooked meals, and maybe that's because people are so busy with work, kids, life. Kind of just hard to find the time.
Yeah, I have to say we're on a mission at home to do home-cooked meals. And this is where our next guest comes in. He's got a new book out today. It's aimed at making cooking simpler for all of us. And we are delighted to have with us here in studio James Beard, award-winning author and chef Rocco DiSpirito. His new cookbook is Everyday Delicious, 30-minute-ish home-cooked meals made simple. Welcome. We're always looking to rush things. It's kind of crazy, but that's another discussion for another period of time. How are you?
I'm great. I think it's a great discussion to start off with tonight. We don't need to rush cooking, but most people don't have a lot of time. And the reason I say 30 minutes-ish is because many recipes are 15 minutes and 20 minutes, and they're not all 30
Do
minutes.
people, for the most part, don't think that?
Most people believe that if they spend more than 30 minutes cooking, it's too much time. But I love cooking, so I spend the whole day cooking. I think people who live a life where cooking is embedded in their lifestyle don't count the minutes so much.
But my point is, you can cook a meal, a really great meal, in a short period of time. And I think the perception is, in order to, if you're going to make a meal, it's going to be hours of preparation.
You absolutely can cook an extraordinary meal in 10 to 12 minutes. I watched my grandmother and mother do it almost every day of our lives. The amount of time it takes for the pasta to cook on the package is all you need to make any dish. And I've got 10 new pastas in this book that I think are, OG, lovable, everyone's top 10 list.
Well, I want to go to the book and go to the beginning
Let's
of the book.
go to the book.
Karen and I were talking about this as we were preparing for this.
It's really...
This kind of hit for us pretty hard because you said you love cooking, but you write in the book something that kind of struck me. You said, Cooking's been incredibly rewarding professionally, but behind the scenes, I almost never join the table to appreciate the meal myself. As my career progressed, the personal joy of home cooking and the significance it held became distant. The light that came from cooking for myself, family, and friends, a formative part of my childhood, had dimmed. It was almost like you're talking about falling out of love with cooking.
Or falling out of love with the ability to wrench myself away from my work and sit down at the table and, join my family and friends for that wonderful moment where magic happens, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we all get caught up in our professional lives and living in New York and being obsessed with our careers. You know how it goes. And it took something like the pandemic to sort of stop me dead in my tracks and to say, Rock, go sit at that table, cook for your family. They love you. They want to hang with you, and you can make their lives better in this moment by cooking anything, basically. And that's kind of where the genesis of this book is, because this is supposed to be a keto book. This is supposed to be keto comfort too.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then obviously that book came out in March 2020, and so things changed. And after 9 months of living at home and being at home 24/7 and cooking every day, I realized that that's really where it's at, and we need to talk about it and discuss it. So this is my first conventional cookbook, even though I've written 15 books. Nine have been health and wellness books.
Yeah.
And the others have all been professional review, which, as you know, is very different. Yeah.
Well, and talk about the conventional aspect of this, because it is, people are, unfortunately, and maybe it's everywhere, but certainly in this area, between commutes and so on and so forth, we're pressed for time. And it's so easy to take the easy route, if you will, when it comes to meals. So tell us about how you thought about it, whittled it down.
I think the easy route has become more and more complicated, and I'm not so sure it's the best bet anymore. Ordering out, picking up takeout, it's very very time consuming.
I'm tired of takeout in my house.
Aren't
and
we?
No, seriously, I've just said stop. We rather would do a meal and have leftovers, and that's kind of our thinking.
Exactly, and if you cook a few meals a week, you do get a lot of leftovers, and so you're really able to turn them into multiple meals if you're a little bit clever. You don't have to be a great chef to know how to do that. And I'm finding that the dilution of quality that's happening with all the apps and delivery services, it's just no longer a compelling story.
What do you mean by dilution of quality?
I think everything is becoming quite uniform, homogenized. All the food is starting to look and taste the same. They're coming out of the same ghost kitchens.
So you're ordering from a different, what looks like a different store on your app, and it could be coming from the same
So
place.
the idea of wonder, do you not think is like a good thing?
So my friends founded Wonder, and I think it's a great thing. They're actually trying to combat what I'm criticizing by working with about 10 of the greatest chefs in America who actually came up with those menus and supervised that. So they might be the exception to what I'm talking about. But when you're talking about basically 3 or 4 apps that monopolize delivery, everything sort of tends to become a little bit of a disappointing experience. Nothing like it is when you cook at home. I mean, all you have to do is drop a pound of pasta in a pot of boiling water, add butter and Parmigiano Reggiano, and you are really like in a 3-star Michelin environment all of a sudden. That's all you have to do.
That's the only thing I can cook. That's the problem.
That's one of the greatest things to eat, so you're in great shape, It's like saying my only suit is a Gucci, couture suit that they made for me.
Not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. Not so bad. You can wear that over and over, right?
Pasta's never so bad. We're going to come back with Rocco. We're talking about his new book, Everyday Delicious, 30-minute-ish home-cooked meals made simple, a cookbook. We're going to come back and continue in just a moment.
Wait, before that, though, check on the latest world and national news. We got Amy Morris from Bloomberg 99.1 Newsroom in D.C. Hey, Amy.
Hi, Tim. The Drug Enforcement Administration is ready to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. This is a new proposal that would recognize the medical uses of cannabis and acknowledge that it has less potential for abuse. It does not legalize marijuana for recreational use. Student demonstrators at Columbia University who barricaded themselves in a campus building face expulsion now. Students took over the building last night, hours after the university said it would not divest from Israel. Student Jessica Schwab saw what was happening.
The people who were already inside Hamilton Hall decided to smash the windows and then put bike locks around each door handle, and they also zip tied the door handles.
And the Department of Education has an open investigation into anti-Semitism and student safety on the Columbia campus. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona told senators that the department will need another $22 million for more such investigations in the future. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says campus protests must remain peaceful.
The president believes that forcibly taking over a building on campus is absolutely the wrong approach. That is not an example of peaceful protest.
Kirby says students who want an education ought to be able to get one without disruption. Donald Trump was found in contempt of court, fined $9,000 for violating the court's gag order. Bloomberg Law host June Grosso says the judge did not buy the former president's defense.
Donald Trump and his lawyers kept saying, we have to respond.